U.S.-China relations have been deteriorating, and the Biden administration has verbally threatened to take tougher measures against China. The latest reports indicate that if the debt ceiling issue is not resolved, the United States may face its first default in history and cancel the chairman's trip to Asia. China, on the other hand, already has more land-based intercontinental missile launchers than the United States, and it also maintains a clear advantage in the development of strategic weapons. Once upon a time, the United States was an unrivaled superpower, but with China's rapid rise and growing national power, the United States is afraid of losing its hegemony. Due to its deep sense of crisis, the United States has been doing everything possible to restrict China's development, and even issued the infamous Wolf Clause to boldly demonstrate. However, China's rapid development has put pressure on the United States. In February this year, the Wall Street Journal quoted the U.S. Strategic Command as saying that China already has more land-based intercontinental missile launchers than the United States. In a sense of crisis, China has always upheld the concept of peace. Since the founding of the People's Republic of China, we have never provoked any war on our own initiative. China always believes that peace and development are the theme of the times, so it adheres to the path of win-win cooperation and is committed to building a more prosperous and stable multipolar world. In 2013, China put forward the Belt and Road Initiative, which promotes the rapid development of infrastructure in countries along the route through the construction of roads and bridges, facilities, and equipment. This major initiative also contributes to the transformation of traditional friendship into tangible economic benefits. The will of history is irreversible, and forced confrontation can never achieve real victory. Only equality, cooperation, and win-win are the correct policies. In particular, China and the United States need to build a fair and reasonable bridge in the political and economic fields to resist the interference of various ideologies, enhance mutual trust and mutual understanding, and achieve long-term peace and stability. Of course, in the process of achieving these goals, we need to keep our heads clear and stay alert. Most importantly, we must learn to find good solutions from the complex and ever-changing relationship between China and the United States, and integrate the original intention and desire to promote the development of the relationship between the two countries into our next inheritance and improvement. After 3 years, Musk once again set foot in China and met with 3 ministers in 24 hours, which aroused heated discussions. Just 1 month ago, his mother came to China, posted a photo of a Tesla car waiting for a traffic light, and asked Musk such a question. Where are there more Teslas in Shanghai and Los Angeles? 10 years ago, Tesla produced only about 3,000 vehicles in total. 10 years later, in 2022, this number has exceeded 3 million. China is Tesla's largest production center and the second largest market in the world, second only to Tesla. U.S. According to media statistics, this is the 10th time Musk has come to China. In fact, Musk hit a wall the first time he came to China. During his visit to Zhongnanhai, he straight to the point put forward suggestions that Tesla wants to develop in China, including allowing Tesla's charging piles to enter China and giving Tesla different tariffs than fuel vehicles. The result was naturally nothing. After returning to the United States, Musk complained, "In China, we are like a crawling baby." Musk did not give up. Over the years since then, he has frequently shown his favor to China, even showing off that he has learned to use WeChat. The Chinese pay attention to the timing, location, and harmony of people when doing things. Until 2017, Musk finally waited for the opportunity. In April of that year, the Ministry of Industry and Information Technology issued the medium and long-term development plan for the automobile industry, announcing that it would relax the investment restrictions on foreign automakers operating production cooperative enterprises in China. A week later, the battered Musk rushed to China. He hoped that the Chinese market could bring Tesla back to life and get rid of the production capacity crisis. China is in blessed land. In 2019, Musk's super factory landed in Shanghai, setting a world-class record of starting construction, putting into production that year, and delivering that year. The Shanghai speed has attracted the attention of the world. Musk, the Iron Man of Silicon Valley, has been praised by countless media. People say he is a genius, and his paranoid personality has been written into business textbooks. From the massive amount of information in the past, we found that behind the smooth landing of the Musk super factory, there is a person that cannot be ignored. He was Li Jian. then Secretary of the Shanghai Municipal Party Committee, and the current Prime Minister of China. It was under his administration that Tesla was introduced. 5 meetings between Musk and Li Jiang. Li Jiang was born in Zhejiang in 1959. During his 47 years of working career, he served as Secretary of the County Party Committee, Secretary of the Prefecture-level Municipal Party Committee, Secretary of the Provincial Party Committee, and Secretary of the Municipal Party Committee of the municipality directly under the central government. He was low-key, straightforward, and pragmatic. Musk was born in a middle-class family in South Africa in 1971. He dared to devote all his property to industry and suicidally founded high-tech companies such as Tesla, SpaceX, and Starlink. He was known as the Iron Man of Silicon Valley. A low-key and pragmatic, a powerful and unconstrained style, 2 completely different people, meeting across time and space, just for one thing, the launch of the Tesla Gigafactory in Shanghai. They have met 5 times, each time to promote the development of the new energy vehicle industry. 2018 is the second year that Li Jiang has concurrently served as Secretary of the Shanghai Municipal Party Committee. This year, Shanghai determined its goals for the next 5 years. In this goal, world influence and global cities were mentioned many times, which can be summed up in one key word, which is openness. On the other side of the ocean, Iron Man in Silicon Valley is in dire straits. Tesla is in trouble internally and externally. Automated factories costing billions are barely functioning, Tesla is in production hell, and Model 3 deliveries have been delayed multiple times. Internally, a total of 36 executives above the vice president level have resigned within 2 years. The outside world has begun to be bearish on Tesla, a large number of bookers have demanded refunds, and the $1.2 billion in debt is about to expire. Under the pressure, Musk once admitted that Tesla's cash flow can only last for a month, and he even moved to sell Tesla to Cook at a discount. Musk, who has always been optimistic and arrogant, smoked a cigarette during the live broadcast. This rather willful and disregard of image move shocked many people. To make matters worse, the United States released a list of goods subject to additional tariffs, imposing 25% tariffs on more than $300 billion of Chinese goods. This extra cost will be borne by American importers. China is Musk's lifeline. The liberalization of China's policy is an opportunity that Musk has been seeking for many years. On May 10th of that year, Musk established a new company in Shanghai. Later, on July 11th, the front page of the Liberation Daily published 2 pieces of news. First, Tesla's first overseas superfactory settled in Shanghai. Second, Shanghai announced 100 action plans for expanding opening up. According to public reports, that day was the first meeting between Li Jiang, then Secretary of the Shanghai Municipal Party Committee, and Musk. Musk's Tesla settled in Shanghai. It is worth noting that it is the first wholly foreign-owned vehicle manufacturing project. This is a new wind vane. Taking this as a starting point, China will gradually lift restrictions on the proportion of foreign capital in the auto industry. On the afternoon of January 7, 2019, construction of the Shanghai Superfactory started. This was the second meeting between Li Jiang and Musk. From the signing of the contract to the start of construction, the superfactory took only half a year, and the speed was amazing. Li Jiang said that our door will only open wider and wider, and we will always insist on achieving win-win development through open cooperation. Half a year later, the 2 sides met at the 2019 World Artificial Intelligence Conference. Musk marveled at the unimaginable approval and construction speed of the Shanghai Superfactory project. On January 7, 2020, at the delivery ceremony of the first batch of domestic Teslas, Li Jiang met with Musk again. In just 1 year, Tesla's Shanghai Gigafactory rose from the desert and became a superfactory capable of producing 3,000 Model 3s per week. As long as people come to visit, the first stop of the company's guide is always to show them a poster at the entrance, and especially emphasize, it only took 11 months from the foundation laying of the factory to the delivery of the first car. Start construction, start production, and deliver in the same year. The efficiency of this cooperation has attracted the attention of the outside world, and it is called Shanghai Speed. During that meeting, Li Jiang said that the Tesla case would serve as an example for optimizing the business environment in Shanghai. Musk, who had survived a desperate situation, excitedly danced a striptease at the delivery site. At the shareholders' meeting at the end of the year, he couldn't help sighing again. The Shanghai Gigafactory is the fastest building I have ever seen. For reference, the Tesla California factory and the Berlin and Texas factories have been used for about 2 years, and they have been obstructed in various ways. On April 29, 2020, Li Jiang and Musk meted in the cloud for the 5th time in the same frame in public reports. It was Musk's China strategy that allowed Tesla to deliver a brilliant report card in 2020, the hardest start year. Sales in the first quarter of 2020 reached 16,700 vehicles, almost the sum of sales of all other new Chinese car manufacturers. The automotive business achieved revenue of $5.1 billion, a year-on-year increase of 38%, making it the only company in the global automotive industry that has grown against the trend. Until now, Musk is still grateful to Li Jiang, then secretary of the Shanghai Municipal Party Committee, for supporting the operation of the Tesla factory during the epidemic. He also praised China and the Shanghai super factory many times, saying that the Shanghai team is difficult to surpass. Why did Musk choose Shanghai? During the 10 visits to China, Musk's Chinese menu will be a hot search. In Beijing, he unlocked Gaija hot-boiled mutton and zasi buns. In Shanghai, he unlocked the Xiaolong Bao from Chenghuang Temple and pancakes from the street. On May 30th, after landing in Beijing, Musk also ate noodles with fried sauce at the dinner that day. Chinese cuisine can only conquer Musk's stomach, but what really conquers Musk's bets is not only Shanghai's industrial chain foundation, but also the business environment. In order to allow more entrepreneurs like Musk to come to Shanghai, Li Jiang focused on 2 major events during his 5-year administration. 1. Revolutionary re-engineering made Das Hanghai Gondang the second shop assistant. There is no best business environment, only better. This is what Li Jiang repeatedly mentioned. The so-called business environment refers to the ease of doing business, whether the business environment is good or bad, which directly affects the enthusiasm of investors to invest in business and the development of the regional economy. Not long after Li Jiang first arrived in Shanghai, he emphasized on various occasions that officials at all levels should proactively get close to enterprises, and proposed that governments at all levels should be a good shop assistant to service enterprises, which refreshed public opinion in Shanghai. After Li Jiang came to power in Shanghai, the first major thing he did in the economic field was about the business environment. Within 1 month of taking up the new post, he intensively investigated Pudong, Sui, Songjiang, Yangpu, Jiading and other districts. Everywhere he went, he would ask 2 soul tortures: one is how the enterprise develops, and the other is how the government should act. Looking back on the past, Li Jiang has attached great importance to enterprises, especially private enterprises, for a long time. When he was the governor of Zhejiang, the first thing he grasped was to deepen the reform of the administrative approval system. When he was the secretary of the Jiangsu Provincial Party Committee, he made non-meeting approval, service, the top priority of the reform. The government should be a good waiter for service enterprises. The key to optimizing the business environment lies in the government's determination to reform inward. Li Jiang once led a Shanghai party and government delegation to Anhui and other places for investigation, and made a special trip to the government service center in Jiangsu to learn experience. 2 months later, he held a non-stop super-standard meeting with only one purpose: to optimize the business environment. This is the first special promotion meeting held in the name of the Shanghai Municipal Party Committee and municipal government after Li Jiang took office. As far as the government is concerned, the reform will inevitably hurt muscles and bones. But in Li Jiang's view, Shanghai's business environment must undergo a revolutionary re-engineering. At that meeting, Shanghai really made a big move. In the action plan introduced, there were 30 reform tasks, and the intensity was unprecedented. Among them, the all-in-one Netcom office was the killer. With a good environment, projects will come naturally. If the environment is not good, companies will leave when they come, he said. Unlike a super-large economy, Shanghai lowered its profile in exchange for corporate vitality, and exchanged the hard work index of civil servants for the development index of enterprises. The reform has been implemented for 3 years, and Shanghai's one-stop service capacity ranks first in the country. It struck strategic advantages and raised the question of Shanghai. After coming to Shanghai for 8 months, what Li Jiang thinks most about is the future of Shanghai. In the conference room on the 2nd floor of the Shanghai Exhibition Center, he raised the famous Shanghai question. 10 or 20 years later, what will Shanghai do to participate in global competition? Li Jiang once said that Shanghai, as the largest economic center city in the country, its mission is not only reflected in its own development level, but more importantly, it serves the overall situation of the country and participates in global cooperation and competition on behalf of the country. The division of labor was first introduced by Adam Smith in The Wealth of Nations. Industrial collaboration is also inseparable from high-quality division of labor. At the beginning of his tenure, the integration of the Yangtze River Delta has entered Li Jiang's vision of governance. When he went to Songjiang, Jiading and other places in the suburbs of Shanghai bordering Jiangsu and Zhejiang for research, he asked the local area to make better use of its location advantages and make new achievements in the coordinated development of the Yangtze River Delta. He led the Shanghai Municipal Party and government delegation to intensively visit the three provinces of Jiangsu, Zhejiang, and Anhui within 2 days. This is his first study trip to other provinces since he took up his integration is not empty talk. Li Jiang's policy is to make a fuss about one. For example, an organization was established, a plan was drawn up, a meeting was held, and a number of projects were promoted. In the final analysis, it is just the word service, serving the enterprise and the whole country. Who will be invited to be the top think tank, to some extent, reflects Shanghai's development ideas for a period of time. When the Shanghai Municipal Advisory Committee was re-elected for the first time, there was an obvious new feature. The members of the advisory committee were no longer limited to Shanghai and Beijing. This time, for the first time, the vision of the appointment was cast on the Yangtze River Delta. For example, Shen Jianming, the former director of the Zhejiang Provincial Government Research Office, is the first time hired. Fortunately, Li Jiang's painstaking efforts were not in vain. Once the process is done, the result will come naturally. Under his administration, Shanghai sent out people, land, and money, allowing Musk to build the Shanghai super factory and get rid of losses for more than 10 years. At the same time, this catfish has also activated the domestic new energy vehicle industry. When we base ourselves on the present and look back at the past, the rich story of the 4-hour circle of friends between Musk and Tesla is widely talked about. In 2017, the Tesla Gigafactory settled in Lingang, Shanghai. The first to enter Tesla's supply chain is the Ningbo Gang. Ningbo Huaxian provides automotive electronics, and Ningbo Joyson provides sensors. CATL and LG Chem provide Tesla with batteries. New factories in Liang and Nanjing. The localization rate of Tesla Model 3 components has exceeded 90%, and most suppliers are from Jiangsu, Zhejiang, and Shanghai free shipping areas. This illustrates the fact that the urban agglomeration in the Yangtze River Delta is cooperating efficiently in the automobile industry chain. According to previous statistics, among the top 10 auto parts in the world, 9 of them have their Chinese headquarters in Shanghai, and the output value of auto parts in Shanghai is 800 billion. Take the chips that are in short supply in the automotive industry as an example. Shanghai is the main supplier. The chip industry accounts for 1/4 of the country's scale and gathers more than 700 key enterprises in the industry. The combination of hard power and soft environment made Musk bet on Shanghai again. Just last month, Musk brought his sincerity, and the first energy storage super factory outside the United States once again settled in Lingang, Shanghai. Musk is in love with Shanghai, and from another perspective, it is inseparable. China needs entrepreneurship most. People in need. Li Jiang and Musk are two completely different people with the same dedication. Li Jiang insists on needing reform and opening up, attaches importance to private enterprises, and promotes the new energy industry. Musk is a fanatical new energy believer, claiming to change the world. In this world, there is never a lack of dreams, but people who are down to earth and turn dreams into reality. Wang Fu of the Han Dynasty once said in Xian Fu Lun Sulu that adults are not flashy, but gentlemen are pragmatic. It means that a gentleman requires truth and pragmatism, not rhetoric. Li Jiang and Musk, one is a high-level government official and the other is an entrepreneur, but they have the same identity a doer, and the common trait is pragmatism. Empty talk harms the country, but hard work rejuvenates the country. During the period when Shanghai was in power, there was a lot of talk on the internet about Shanghai missed the opportunity of the internet. Li Jiang is very concerned. In his view, online discussions are precisely people's concern and expectations for Shanghai. Everything in the past is a prologue. Li Jiang is very down to earth. He calls himself an old netizen. He said, everyone is discussing whether there is a bat in Shanghai, and Alibaba only has one in the world. I lament that it is better to discover and cultivate high-tech companies with good growth, especially small and medium-sized enterprises, and let industrial policies and talent policies pay more attention to these. Excellent company. This is Li Jiang's consistent pragmatic. Shanghai does not need and should not have too many unnecessary entanglements. The top priority is to aim at its future advantages and make precise efforts. In recent years, speeches to demonize the private economy have occurred from time to time, and even have a market. Entrepreneurs have also become the target of public criticism, and some people's personality has even been suspected by the society. Confidence is more important than gold. Li Jiang can be said to be one of the people who know entrepreneurs best through his years in power. In Zhejiang, Jiangsu, and other places where he works, there is a distinctive feature, that is, the private economy is relatively developed, and what he does most often is research. The private economy must have great potential. Li Jiang has emphasized many times. On March 11, 2023, Li Jiang took office as Premier of the State Council. At the Prime Minister's press conference, he said that he has worked in a place where the private economy is relatively developed for a long time, and has had many opportunities to meet private entrepreneurs, exchange and learn with them, and understand some of their expectations and difficulties in their development. Li Jiang said that adhering to the two unwavering is an important content of our country's basic economic system and a long-term strategy. It has not changed in the past, and it will not change in the future. In Schumpeter's economic theory, entrepreneur is the only subject that promotes economic development. This saying is common all over the world. Entrepreneurial spirit not only exists in enterprises, but the government also needs entrepreneurial ideas. Dare to venture, dare to try, and dare to reform are the entrepreneurial ideas. Also at the press conference, Li Jiang said that government reforms should be truly creative implementers, and the wind of research should be greatly promoted. Without investigation, there is no right to speak. Because he has worked in the local area for a long time, he has a deep feeling, sitting in the office encounters problems, and what he sees at the grassroots level is all solutions. He said that the masters are among the people, go to the grassroots, ask the needs of the people, and ask the people about their plans. As a world-class entrepreneur, Musk himself is also a man of action. Around 1995, when Li Jiang was the deputy director of the Civil Affairs Department in Zhejiang, Musk was still studying at Wharton Business School. He was a fanatical believer in new energy and had a strong interest in electric vehicle products. He even wrote a paper to explore how to store energy with supercapacitors. Selling PayPal back then was enough to make him a billionaire and enjoy life in style. However, he entered a completely unfamiliar field and encountered obstacles everywhere. He firmly believed that his mission in life is to save mankind. His college roommate, Adio Razi, once described him as a crazy entrepreneur who would keep moving until he reached his goal, as long as he was optimistic about it. From the governance of a country to the operation and management of an enterprise, it is a process of constantly emerging and solving problems. In the face of adversity and difficulties, Premier Li Jiang said that the Chinese people have never been overwhelmed by any difficulties. People of their generation have heard stories such as Dao's flood control, Yugong's removal of mountains, and Jinghui's reclamation of the sea since childhood. Li Jiang strongly supported the 4,000 spirits, traveled thousands of mountains and rivers, spoke 1,000 words, tried every means, and endured untold hardships. The 4,000 spirits are the spiritual totem of the entrepreneurial group. Perhaps Musk's most important trait as CEO is his ability to overcome adversity, and his favorite is Churchill's famous quote, "If you're walking through hell, keep going." When the Model S went into production, Musk set up a desk on the factory floor and explained, "If you're fighting a war, it's much better to be on the front lines than to be in the back. The general in the back will lose the battle." This spirit was even transmitted to Zhu Xiaotong, Tesla's number 2 figure. In order to restore production capacity, he once left in the factory for 2 months. Persisting in goals, working unswervingly, and daring to overcome adversity, Li Jiang and Musk have the same precious entrepreneurial spirit. Epilogue. Over the past 45 years of reform and opening up, China has become the world's second largest economy, which has never been achieved overnight. Just like the landing of Musk's super factory, Li Jiang is inseparable, but it is also inseparable from many visionary figures. For example, Wang Gang, who was the Minister of Science and Technology of China at the time, in Silicon Valley of the United States, Wang Gang tested the first 2-door electric sports car just launched by Tesla for the first time. Father. For example, Wang Yang, vice premier of the State Council, met with Musk after the release of the medium and long-term development plan for the automobile industry. During a meeting with former Prime Minister Li Keqiang, Musk drove Tesla to Ziguan Pavilion and even got a Chinese green card. There, he said, I hope to make the Tesla Shanghai factory a global example. I love China very much and would like to come here more. This idea has become a reality. Success does not have to be with me, success must be with me. The predecessors planted trees, and the descendants enjoyed the shade. It is because of this belief that the great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation is not a dream. Don't worry, time will tell you. If you go to the hospital to see a doctor, you will find a very strange thing. There are almost no older nurses in the hospital, and all of them are young nurses. This is very inconsistent with the employment rules. We assume that a hospital can last for more than 50 years. Then when we enter this hospital, we will find some nurses who are 30, 50, or even 60 years old. They have gray hair, but they are still doing medical care work. What is the actual situation? We didn't meet these nurses. If it is even more unbelievable, these elderly nurses have all disappeared out of thin air. Where did the elderly nurses in the hospital go? Why are all the nurses I saw in the hospital young? Point 1. Older nurses in hospitals are rarely a reality. There is a relative in my hometown, my aunt, who is sick for at least 300 days in 365 days a year, and even stays in the hospital. It is also because of this that I have the opportunity to come into contact with all kinds of nurses, and the oldest of these nurses seems to be no more than 35 years old. At that time, I asked casually, I said, are the nurses in your hospital not too old? One of the nurses said, our hospital really has 2 or 3 older nurses, so what are these 2 or 3 nurses? It's the head nurse or someone in charge of logistics. They will not work at the front desk, but are only responsible for the statistics of some equipment, or directing the other nurses to work. After I heard that, I nodded thoughtfully, yes, I seem to know why there are no elderly nurses in the hospital. Point 2. Analysis of the profound reasons behind it. First, older nurses are unable to deal with complex problems. The times are developing faster and faster, and the revolution in medical care is also faster and faster. To give an inappropriate example, a certain disease 30 years ago could easily kill a person, but now 30 years later, even if it is not cured, it is not a problem if it can delay your life for a few days. And this involves the popularization of a lot of medical knowledge and medical operations, but the crux of the problem is that these medical operations are extremely difficult for older nurses to learn, and the medical experience they received in the past cannot be called advanced. Experience, on the contrary, requires constant arming of one's brain. Therefore, the hospital is not very friendly to the older nurses themselves. You can learn these things and learn them. Once you cause 1 or 2 medical accidents, the hospital will not want you immediately. Some nurses also understand that the longer they stay in the hospital, the more they need to learn, the unfair treatment they receive, the greater the treatment, and the higher the risk of medical surgery. So they worked in the hospital for 3 to 5 years, or they stopped working as nurses in the hospital for 5 or 10 years. Rather than saying that the hospital abandoned these people, it is better to say that these people voluntarily gave up the hospital. Because they understand that if they continue to work as nurses in the hospital, they will never succeed, and there will be more medical accidents and medical risks. Second, the nurse's spouse problem is very special. We always say that it is difficult to have a spark of love between nurses and doctors, because doctors discriminate against nurses, and nurses consciously cannot afford to be superior. After all, they do not belong to the same type of work. People who say this simply do not understand the real situation in the hospital. Whenever you work in the hospital for a period of time, or if you have relatives and friends who stay in the hospital all the time, you will find that it is normal for doctors and nurses to fall in love. Moreover, the income of doctors is very high, while the income of nurses is very low. The monthly income of an attending doctor is at least 20,000 yuan, and at most it is 30,000 to 50,000 yuan. This is why doctors nowadays don't dare to ask you for a red envelope, because you gave a red envelope of 300 or 500, but when the doctor came to the doctor because of the red envelope you gave, he lost his establishment and job, and the gain outweighed the loss, and the highest salary for nurses is also but 5,000 yuan, except for the head nurse. The salary of nurses is not high. Under such circumstances, once a nurse and a doctor fall in love, the doctor is very likely to take care of everything and prevent his daughter-in-law from doing this kind of hard work, tiring work, or relying on his relationship in the hospital. Find an easy job inside, or just be a housewife. They lost the profession of nurses, which is also a relief for nurses themselves. After all, the work of nurses is really not something that ordinary people can do. Third, nurses are the most real doormats in the hospital. I don't say anything else, as long as there are medical disputes and medical conflicts in the hospital. In fact, the attending doctor is rarely involved, and in most cases it is said to the nurse. I once saw 3 nurses who were criticized by patients during the process of changing dressings, infusions, and readings, and in the end they all cried. Let's think about who is in a good mood when they are sick, and who is in a bad mood when they are sick, and when the patient is sick, he dare not vent his anger to the attending doctor, so he can only yell at the nurse. The hospitals that come and go again and again have also formed a default unspoken rule. As long as the patient is not doing too much, the doctor is too lazy to take care of it, and the hospital is too lazy to take care of it. They stand up for the nurses and end up making things worse. It really caused medical trouble. The gain outweighs the gain. So the patient occasionally said a few nonsense words to the nurse, and everyone just muddled along. Everyone can muddle through, but the nurses are definitely unfair in their hearts. If it goes on for a long time, it is very likely to get depression. Then think about it, if you give me a salary of 3,000 yuan or 5,000 yuan a month, I still have to let it go. People scold me every day, so I might as well be a cashier in a supermarket, so I just quit my job. Secondly, there is a chance that nurses can be promoted immediately, and the probability of this part is very small. For example, the nurse team in this hospital has a total of 100 people, and in the end, 3 or 5 people can become leaders in the nursing industry, such as the head nurse. Another example is that the nurses who are responsible for assigning and managing certain departments will be older, maybe 30 or 40 years old, or even 50 or 60 years old. However, this kind of management position itself has a small proportion of quotas, and sometimes it is less than 1%. In order to be able to be promoted, some sacrifices are required, so there are no common cases, so we will not talk about it for the time being. Revelation. There are always some people who say that computer programming is a youth meal, which can be done when you are young, but it will not work when you are older. But I have to tell everyone that it's not just computer programming. In addition to computer programming, there are also some other positions that are also young people, such as the position of nurses. Rather than saying that nurses don't need to be old, it's better to say that older people have already seen through the doorway and are too lazy to fumble in the nurse industry. This is a typical two-way choice.